Hey everyone, Cassie here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel for another video. Today I'm going to be playing with some new to me Pawsome stamps, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm going to be using the brand new Jolly Cupcakes to make a card for you today. So here is what Jolly Cupcakes looks like. This is a fun stamp set that has 6 different cupcakes and several different sentiments and a cake stand. It is just a darling little set. I'm going to focus on one stamp, but let's make our background first. I have some picked raspberry and a blending brush, and I am going to blend onto this regular cardstock, which is actually cut down to 4 inches by 5.5 inches. So it's not quite the same size as a full A2 size front would be. We're starting really heavy on the edges, and we're going to blend that in, kind of ombre all the way into the center. I'm using some of the ink that's on my glass mat, and I'm also just kind of pulling in and also grabbing from the ink pad. I want it to be, like I said, very heavy on the edges and kind of go ombre into that center and almost blend out completely. We'll just keep blending until I'm pretty happy with that. And then once we're done with that, I do want to bring in a little bit of water. I know this isn't watercolor paper, so I'm not going to leave it on there for very long. I leave it on for just a few seconds and then wipe it up. And then I'm going to heat set that, make sure that that is good and dry before we move on to the next step, which is actually some stamping. So I'm going to take that same picked raspberry ink along with the cupcake that I plan to use, and I'm going to stamp that all over that background just to add a little bit of texture and interest. I love this little cupcake. I mean, I love them all. I think they're all darling, but this one just spoke to me. I'd eat any of these if they were in front of me. And then once we have those all stamped, we'll clean up our mess and put this into our makeshift splatter box. I'm going to splatter on a little bit of liquid pixie dust using a fan brush. And it's very, very subtle, but as you look at it in real life or even in the light a little bit, it is splattery goodness, I'll tell you what. Really, really pretty, and it adds a lot of interest to that background. Now I need to stamp out my images. So I'm going to stamp our cupcake. I did use a magic powder bag over this, and I'm stamping this with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, which is a pigment ink. And then I'll cover this with a clear embossing powder, and then I'll heat set that till that is smooth and melted. And so it'll go from that matte finish to a shiny finish, and then you'll know it's ready to go. And then I did stamp out the cake stand as well and did the same process. I want to do a little bit of watercoloring with some Distress Oxides, which if you've never done is a very fun thing to do. So I've got picked raspberry, twisted citron, hickory smoke, and then we are going to bring in some scattered straw, just a little bit, and I'm putting that onto my glass mat. We'll zoom in, and I have a water brush, and then we're just going to start watercoloring those colors right over our image. I decided to do the heat embossing because basically that creates little wells for the color, and then you don't have to be quite as careful about those colors being dry before you move on to coloring something right next to it. Typically, if you just stamp and then you're watercoloring, you have to be extremely careful about watercoloring next to an image that you just did because that color will bleed into each other. But when you heat emboss, it doesn't. All right, I do want to add a little bit of depth to the bottom of our cupcake, so I'm bringing in that hickory smoke, and I'm starting kind of heavy at the bottom and blending it up to the top of our little cupcake holder. And then I'll go in with some darker color, basically just adding some layers, which is sort of how watercolor works. And then I'll blend those out, and then I'll try to get a little bit of variation in that color for our berries and do the same thing with our leaves, but I'm not quite as successful with that. And then I'm going to color our cake stand with our twisted citron, because why not? And I do get a little bit of variation in the color here. So I'll add a good amount of darkness and then blend that out with the water. Now we need to fussy cut these, although I'm pretty sure there are some matching dies to go with these. And now I need to stamp a sentiment. So I have a strip of white cardstock and my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. I'm going to try and center this sentiment up in the middle of that. And then we're going to attach down our panel to our card base, which was a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock that I scored at 4.25 inches. So it's a side folding A2 size card. I want to stamp my cupcake on the inside, so I'll use that picked raspberry again. And then we'll stamp our sentiment on the inside as well using that VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. I put some foam tape on our sentiment, and I'm lining that up on our glass mat and tacking that down. And then I did attach our cupcake to the cake stand with some liquid glue and then used foam tape behind it. So everything is popped up. Then I'm going to bring in some White Blizzard Nouveau glitter drops, and I'm just going to kind of feather that up starting at the bottom. I don't want to fill in the whole bit of the frosting. I just want some of that glitter to be at the bottom, and a little bit on our berries. And then when we're done with that, that's actually going to finish off our card for today. So here's a quick, easy, beautiful, fun A2 Christmas card that you could make using your Jolly Cupcakes. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.